Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Cup of Joy. I'm your host, Ariana Joy Christie, and I am so glad that you are here. This is a space to inspire, to learn, to grow, and to challenge. Get ready to fill your cup and spread a little joy along the way. Okay, Liz Enriquez, personal finance mentor from Ambitious Adulting. Welcome to Your Cup of Joy.
Thank you. I'm excited to chat. Anytime I get to talk about money, it's a fun day for me.
I am very, very excited because I kind of think that finances, money, like those conversations can be taboo and a lot of people don't want to talk about it. But I actually think that it's so very important. So I'm very, very excited.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to note that Liz and I went to high school, like the same high school. So we knew each other from there, but different grades. So we didn't really know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then we spoke at the same event, like a mom conference when I was pregnant with Callie
Yeah.
and reconnected. And I listened to you on your panel and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like you're providing such good, tangible advice to people in regards to finances. So now I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you. Yeah. I know talking about finances is taboo, but for some reason, like I don't find it taboo. I'm an open book. I think finances shouldn't be something that we are scared to talk about because every single person needs to know the basics of personal finances. But because it's like embarrassing or shameful or people just feel like, "Oh, I don't know, so I'm not even going to ask." Then it really is a disservice to everyone as a society because it's not a topic that's discussed.
Totally. And I think that sometimes that's also rooted in not having those conversations in your childhood throughout your life. Like money wasn't something that we ever really talked about. And so I didn't learn about budgeting or investing or any of those things until I was out of the house.
Yeah. And the other thing I've found is that sometimes parents don't know the right answer. And so even if you did talk to your parents, like maybe they had a totally different perspective on money, or maybe they themselves were struggling with money. So it doesn't mean like they
Yeah.
were the ones who know it all. And now as parents, we kind of understand that more. But when you're a child, you're like, of course my parents know everything. Like they're in charge of taking care of me. Like you don't even think that they wouldn't know unless it's like a completely dysfunctional situation where you're like, no, I definitely don't want advice from them. So that's another interesting thing about when people are like, oh, I wish someone had talked to me about it. I'm like, well, maybe your parents just also didn't know. And that's a cycle that, you can break.
Totally. Yeah. And how lucky are we that we do get to break that if that's the case?
Exactly.
So you talk to people and help them confidently kind of take control of their finances. What inspired you to start this?
I started Ambitious Adulting as a blog. So I
Oh,
started blogging in 2000, I think it was like 2014, 2015, about everything. Like I was traveling a lot, I was fixing up my house, and it didn't start off as ambitious adulting. Initially, I wanted to do more of like a home improvement on a budget because I had bought
mm,
my house. I was 24. I didn't have any money after I bought the house. So I was fixing it up on a budget. I was thrifting. I was going to Habitat for Humanity. I was just looking for everything I could on a discount. Eventually, I was writing about that and I kind of ran out of topics to write about because I had fixed everything I needed to fix or wanted to fix. And I'm like, okay, well, now what do I write about? Because I really liked it. And so when I looked at my analytics of the blog, the posts that I had talked about money did the best. So when I talked about how
mm.
I saved for the down payment or how I was paying for fixing it up, those are the blog posts that did the best. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just write a little bit more about how I'm like paying for my mortgage and I was single, I was young, and people wanted to hear that. And they're like, oh my gosh, how did you do it? I'm like, well, I'll tell you exactly how I did it. I'm intentional about saving, I'm intentional about how I invest. And then that's really how it took off. And I was like, I guess people want to know about this. And I've always made it clear that I don't have a finance background, but I think that's another reason people gravitate towards ambitious adulting is because I dropped grade 12 math. I have a geography degree. I don't actually have a finance background, but I had to learn how to manage my money because this is a life skill. And until you get to a certain level of wealth, you really aren't hiring someone else to manage your money. Like you are managing your own money. So I really wanted to understand how to do that strategically, and I've been sharing that online for like 8 years now.
It's incredible. I think that's so cool. I didn't know that you didn't have a finance background. Like, that makes it even more interesting to me. And I think that you're right. Like, that's why it becomes more relatable because similar to you, like, I don't know anything about financing. Or I didn't until I started, like, really asking the right questions and trying to find information, and so, yeah, I'm sure that helps people become more comfortable with you too, because sometimes when you walk into, like, a bank and you are sitting in a meeting, like, they're throwing these words and acronyms out at you, and you're like, "I have no idea what you're talking about," and then you get embarrassed and you just leave.
That's what happened to me. That's what happened to me. I
Yeah,
went to the bank. I was 18. I was opening up my TFSA. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what stock is. And I was so embarrassed. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so dumb. And then I realized, oh, everybody thinks that. We all think we're too dumb. And
yeah,
unless you do have a finance background, they're like, of course I know that. That's easy. But the majority of people don't. And we're just everyday people trying to save and learn. I think everyone understands that saving and budgeting and investing is good, but that's kind of the level of knowledge at where it stops. You're like, okay, now what? And I always compare it to fitness. Like we all know working out is good. We all know eating healthy is good, but then you actually
yeah,
have to do it. You have to make the habits and have that consistency and meal prep, or else it's easy to just fall back on these habits that you had of eating like cereal for dinner every day and then watching TV. Like, no, you know what you have to do to be fit. But
mhm.
and that's the same with finances. Like in theory, you know what you have to do. You know that saving is good, but then actually applying those habits is what makes the difference.
That's such a good metaphor for it because it is so true. Like, we do know we have to do something, but like even the word save or the word invest, like knowing what that means or how to create tangible work out of that, I think is the hard part, how to get started.
It is, yeah.
Um, so do people then work with you? Like, you provide really great insight and information online, which I follow. But how does someone then work with you? What does that look like?
Yeah, I used to run online courses
Hmm,
and kind of boot camps, and now I really do one-on-ones. If people want
amazing.
to reach out to me and you know chat, and I do a lot of budget planning with people because my theory on how I work with ambitious adults, as I call them, is like I don't want them to constantly work with me. Like I want to give them the tools so that they can then manage their own money confidently. And I think as a business perspective, I'd be like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna sign them up for a monthly subscription or but I'm like, no, I want you to learn. I want you to understand the basics, and then I want you to go on your own. And I do have some clients that work with me on retainer because they want an accountability partner to check in with every month. But for the
Hmm.
most part, I want to give clients the tools to learn how to manage their own money. And because I'm not a financial advisor, I never give any recommendations on financial products, but I also let people know like if you want to work with a financial advisor, these are the credentials you want to look out for because they have fiduciary duty. So, a certified financial
Mm,
planner, they cannot sell you investments or insurance or anything in their best interest. And that's because they have rigorous kind of training and ethics for that credential. But for the most part, it's kind of like a wild, wild west. Like anyone could be a financial coach or a financial guru or financial mentor. Like these titles are kind of just made up. And in some cases, people are selling you products or promising you returns that are benefiting them or they're too risky. And again, if you don't know how to understand financial markets or kind of documentation, it's a
mhm.
little, I see it a lot like when people get scammed because they're promised certain returns and they don't realize like this is completely unrealistic. So that's
Yeah.
something that worries me about um, influencers or just kind of like anyone online just telling you to follow their plan.
Yeah, or like, I did this once and it worked, but, like, maybe that's not gonna
Yeah, it
work
could have
every
been
time, you
true. It
know?
could have been,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So I really just
that's
want
so
to
true.
empower people to have the information and understand like kind of how to navigate their own personal finances and like be careful and be cautious. And
Mm.
but yeah, I've been investing since I was 18 and I'm 33 now, so I definitely have been around the block and know what you know what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought 3 houses, so I know
Amazing.
a little bit. Yeah, I know what how personal finances work.
Totally. And then you can provide that insight to people. And I love the idea of giving them the tools to then make the decisions that work best for them. Because what I've learned too is that everybody's goals are different. Like
Yeah.
being happy with your finances can look so different from one family to the next. And so providing them the tools to make those decisions to reach their goals, not just a goal, I think
Mhm.
is so important. Um, can you maybe share with us some of or one of the biggest money mistakes that you made in your early years and how you bounced back?
Oh, in my early years, I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was following investment trends. So when
Mm,
the weed stocks were really popular, I got very excited about that. I'm like, Canada is legalizing weed. Let me jump on board. And I did really well. So, yeah, I doubled my money and I was like getting a bit greedy, I think. And I just kept adding more money.
mm,
And then I just wasn't paying attention. Like when you're actively investing in stocks, you need to pay attention to the stock market and to the businesses that you're investing in. And this is a bit different if you're investing in exchange traded funds or like a robo advisor, and that's a whole other type of investing. But individual stock picking is riskier than a diversified portfolio. Anyways, I doubled my money, but then I lost it all. So I probably lost like $4,000 in that.
yeah.
And I realized then and there, I'm like, okay, yes, stock picking, especially risky stocks or growth stocks or speculative stocks. And these are essentially all different words for like hype, the hype can be rewarding if you know what you're doing and if you're paying attention. If you don't know what you're doing and you're not paying attention and you're just riding the wave of excitement, that's when you can get burned.
We had the exact same thing happen to us. We got really excited about a certain stock and it was really doing well. And we were like, more, more, more. And yeah,
I think
pulled the
everyone
trigger.
who like dabbles goes through that because money
Yeah.
is so emotional and it can be an emotional happiness and like excitement and you just get
Hmm.
excited about it, or it can be on the other side like a very stressful and anxiety inducing experience for you. And that's why I think it's
Yeah.
important for people to know you don't have to be good at math to be good at money or managing your money, because it really is like an emotional and behavioral practice of
Hmm.
saving and investing and being excited about money or being scared. And it's all emotional. Like
Yeah.
to you're not doing crazy calculations when you're thinking about your everyday money. You're thinking about how does it make you feel or what do you want it to make you feel.
Hmm. That's so true. There is so much emotion and feeling attached to it. I think speaking about emotion too, there can be lots of shame and fear
Mhm.
associated with money and finances. How do you help people move past that and more into action?
Yeah, that I mean, I've been on like an emotional journey with my own personal finances, and I share this on my blog that I started writing about finances, or I started aggressively saving and investing because I was so scared of being broke. Like I was so anxious about not having enough money, so stressed about like my future career, not having a good high paying job. Like I had a lot of financial scarcity, so I squirreled
Mm,
money away because I thought I needed a stash of money to feel safe and to feel protected. And so for me, it was a very emotional journey. And then I've worked through it in like years of therapy. And I didn't go to therapy because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such a super saver and it must not be good. It was really a realization of like the way I think about the world is I have to over prepare. And one of the things I was doing was becoming over prepared with finances. And I can't even say I regret that because it worked out really well. But I think if I had continued on that path, it would have been a not very enjoyable life. And this is when you
yeah.
see like the TV shows of like the super couponers or the super savers or the hoarders. There is something, there is some insecurity around money when you get to that level. And I was like, I don't want
Yeah.
to get to that level. So when I work with clients or when I do talks, like I really recognize like, well, first of all, what's your baseline? Like, what do you feel about money? Because some people feel neutral, like they don't feel excited about it or stressed about it. They're just like, money is a tool. And I'm
Yeah.
like, great, that's already like a good starting point. But if you're how I was, like, there's a lot of emotion first to understand, okay, well, why are you like this? Like, what happened? And for me, I think the root of it was because my family came from Mexico as immigrants, and we lived in a 2 bedroom apartment with 6 people. And it was just like my dad was a single income earner, my mom was a stay at home mom because she didn't speak English. And so I just felt, in my inner child, like, un I don't want to say unsafe because I felt safe in my home, but I felt that uncertainty around money.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what stuck with me. And now, as a parent, too, I've tried to be very conscious about how I talk about money with my son because I don't want him to
Mhm.
feel like the way I felt. And I hope he doesn't. But really, you could have 3 kids, as you do, or 4 kids, as my family did, have the same upbringing, but react to it differently or process it differently. So the way I process it
Yeah.
is a bit different than how my brothers processed it. So I'm just very conscious of that and try to kind of remind people that how you feel about money often starts with your childhood, as everything else does, and how you are
Mhm.
as an adult. Like, heal your inner child.
It is like almost like I don't want to say trendy, but almost like a trendy thing now that people are saying is like that inner child. But I think it is so true. Like so often the way that we feel now as adults stems from experiences and feelings that we had as a child. And if you've been raised in this scarcity mindset, then it does turn into that. I used to say to my husband, I have like a really hard time getting rid of things. Like I hold on to things like as silly as I get a t-shirt at a charity event, like, I will keep it in my closet and be like, "Oh, someday when I paint my house,
Yes, I
like, I'll use that." Like, I don't paint my house, like, come on, I'm never gonna wear that, but I think that it's because I used to have this scarcity mindset, like, I'm not gonna be able to replace that if I need it, and so, it's hard to change that mindset when it's so ingrained inside of you, and so, now as a parent, that's something that I want to think about when talking to my kids. Like finances weren't really something that we talked about often in our household. And so we're starting to have those conversations with our kids about, saving, spending, donating, like giving back. These are all like very good and important conversations to have, but I am not an expert in it. So I'm interested to hear from you. What are ways that you talk to your children? Like, when is that appropriate, and how do you kind of start that conversation for someone who maybe hasn't even thought about it?
I've been talking to my sons about money in a general positive sense, like since the day he was born, essentially. Like,
Amazing.
not as an intentional, like, sit down, you're 6 months old, it's about time you learn about money. Like, no, of course not. But if, say, we're at a store, he's turning 4 now, and he'll be like, oh, can I get this? I will never say, no, we don't have money, because that's not true. We do have money, and I don't want him to feel like we don't. So I'll tell him the truth. I'm like, if it's a snack, we don't need that right now. We're going home for dinner. Or, you know what? Why don't we get that next time? And usually it's about food because he actually doesn't really care about toys. He's so sweet. And I don't know where this comes from, but anytime I go to a store and there's a toy and he'll look at it and I'm like, oh, do you want that? Do you like that? He'll be like, no, I have lots of toys at home. And I'm like, I don't know
Aw.
where this came from, but I'm not. So he's never someone who's like, give me that or I want that. But it's always around
Yeah.
food or snacks, like when I take him to the grocery store. So yeah, I don't
Yeah.
say, no, we don't have money. I say, usually I'm like, okay, sure. If you want that banana, let's pick it up and grab it. But yeah, so just kind of starting that conversation. And then we do a lot of playing games. Again, he's only 4, so I'm not doing these lessons. But if we're
Yeah.
doing like grocery store playing or any kind of things like that, I'm conscious about like him understanding that we live in this transactional world, and he knows I have to go to work because I'm making money to pay for our house, and so just like these very basic conversations.
Mhm.
Where I'm very honest about it. When he's like, "Why do you have to go to work?" I'm like, "Well, so I can have money, so we can have nice things." And he's like, "Okay," and that's it.
And they pick up on that. Like, we have had the same conversations with our kids because they'll say to us, "Why are you going to work?" And we'll say, like, use tangible examples of things that they have, whether it's the roof over our head or the food on our plates. and say like those things cost money, and in order to have those things we have to go to work. And now we started to say like, oh, mommy and daddy are going to make that money, honey. So now every time we leave the door to go to work, we
Yeah.
all say, make that money, honey.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. And then
It's hilarious.
he'll tell me, he's like, I'm going to work too because going to school is my work. I'm like, that's right. When
Aw,
you're a kid, like,
yeah.
I don't want you to worry about having to make money. Your job
Yeah.
is to go to school. Your job is to, you know, study until you want to study, and at least until you're in grade 12. Like that's mandatory. And then post that, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to do this, you want to do that, do whatever. But we're
Yeah.
not even close to there yet. So he
Yeah.
has a general understanding of the world, and then also a general understanding of savings. So we always just give him any change that's just floating around, like on the table or whatever. And again, it's not like we're using cash all the time. Like it's like 10 cents, 25 cents. I'm like, yeah, just take it. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna put this in my piggy bank so I can buy Sour Patch Kids one day. And so he knows like the very basics. Like you want to buy something,
You need to
especially
spend.
something like as a treat, you better start collecting your money and
Yeah.
take it to the piggy bank. And I'm sure he actually has more than enough to buy those Sour Patch Kids, but he doesn't know math, so he doesn't know that he has that much. So I'm like,
No,
one
but that's
day, yeah,
so good to have those conversations and for him to be understanding that. My twins are 4 also, and so, yeah, like, at that level is kind of the conversation that we're having lately, and I think it's good for them to know.
yeah.
Now for someone who's maybe, like, super overwhelmed about money and finances and just doesn't know where to start at all, what would be, like, the first simple financial step that you might recommend to them?
I think the first step for anybody is always like a financial audit of their own personal circumstances, because I think
Mhm.
some people get very overwhelmed and want to rush to the finish line, which is like maxing out your accounts or learning how to invest. I'm like, no, you need to start at the starting line. Actually, you need to warm up before you run the race. And the warm up is understanding what's your income, like after tax income. Like you might think, oh, I make $50,000 or I make $90,000. Okay, but how much are you bringing home? So what do you actually bring into your accounts?
Yeah.
What are you spending? And you can do that by pulling your statements on your bank accounts. And then there's also lots of apps. You could use a spreadsheet
True.
and then do the very basic math to be like, okay, I brought in $5,000 last month, but I spent $7,000. There's something happening here. Okay, so you do one
Yeah.
month, then you do a month before that. And I always start with a 3 month baseline because you want to get averages. Because, like, if you're doing this in December, usually that's an expensive month because of Christmas, and, certain months are anomalies. But you do a 3 month baseline of how much income was coming in as a household or independently, and then how, how much are your bills and your expenses. And
Mhm.
then ideally do a whole year.
Yeah.
Once you kind of have the general understanding of how much came in and how much went out, then you can break it down. Okay, well, how much was actually like mandatory spending? That's your mortgage, your rent, your bills, like things that you can't really change and you have to pay for every month. So those are your
Mhm.
fixed expenses. And then how much was your variable? Because variable is where you can make a difference, where you can cut back on eating out or cut back on subscriptions. It's harder to make a difference on some of those fixed ones, but you can still do it. You can call and negotiate, and there's ways to bring down those expenses. But that's where you start. Like you won't, you cannot make strategies without knowing your baseline. And
Yeah.
again, I always compare finances to fitness. Like if you're going to start on this fitness journey and you're going to make all these changes, the first thing you do is weigh yourself to be like, how much do I weigh? Okay, so then you create your strategies and figure out your goals and what you're actually going to do. But the
Mhm.
very first thing you need to do is understand, where are you starting from?
What are you working with?
Yeah,
So a good financial audit, and simply put, like, print off your statements, look at what you're bringing in. And I think it's important to note too, like, after tax dollars, what are you
yeah.
bringing in? Because we want to know what you're actually working with. It's one thing to have this number in our mind, but I think that's really, really good advice. What are some overlooked ways that people can build wealth beyond just like saving or budgeting? What are some things that people might be able to do?
I think like the easiest way, or the way that has worked for me, and I think it's just increasing your income. Like I know it sounds easy or harder to do, and it's just like job hunting or job hopping. Like if you're like, I'm not getting a raise, I need to make a change. Like there's only so much you can save. If you're only bringing in
Yeah.
$60,000 and you're not only, I mean, that's a good amount, but if you're bringing in $60,000 and your expenses are 40,000 and you cannot change that, like you only have that $20,000 to work with as a difference. But if you keep those expenses the same, but increase your income, then you have a bigger gap. And so that's what has worked for me. And I was like a frugal queen. Like I've done it all. I'm like, yeah, I know how to cook at home. And I took the bus and I biked and I only had my husband, I only had one car. Like you can do all of that and still only save maybe like 500 or an extra $1,000, which is great. If you increase your income, then like you could be bringing that in extra and still
Hmm.
living a comfortable life versus making these sacrifices. And so
Yeah.
I like increasing my income over penny pinching. And I did that a few ways. So one of the ways was I house hashed. So the first house I bought, I had roommates. The other thing I did
Mm.
was started side hustles. So I had a full-time job and then I started blogging and then I started making brand deals. But then I also was managing social media accounts for businesses. So I was making like
Cool.
extra $2,000 to $4,000 a month, like with my side hustles on top of my full-time job. And so I've just kind of always had that front of mind over like eating peanut butter and jam sandwiches every day because I don't want to do that. I want to eat out. And if I want to eat
Yeah.
out every day, it's because that means I have to increase my income. Yeah.
Yes. And I actually love that you say that because a lot of times when you talk about finances, people will say like, "Oh, don't go out, don't uh go on vacation, maybe like keep decreasing your life's joys."
Yeah.
Really? And I just think life is meant to live. So like let's not only focus on that. Sure, there are some ways like it's not going to kill my joy to, make a cup of coffee at home 4 days a week and go out
Yeah.
one or two times. But you shouldn't just feel like you can't do anything in order to reach these financial goals that you've set in place. So I love that you talk about side hustles and other ways to make money and negotiating, like having conversations. I say to my sister a lot, like, you never know if you don't ask.
Hmm.
What's the harm? If somebody says no, then they say no. Now you know.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I think that those are really, really great and tangible tips for people to take home. On this podcast, I talk a lot about self care. I'm kind of on my self care
Oh
journey.
yeah. I've been
And
on it for
yes,
a
and
while. I'm all about that self care.
okay, good. I think it's just so important and it really changes our entire mindset. Oftentimes, and I get these comments a lot online too when talking about self care, people equate self care with spending money,
Mm.
which I don't necessarily think is always the case. Definitely sometimes, like if you're thinking, oh, the only way to practice self-care is to go to the spa, then of course that's going to, break the bank sometimes. But it doesn't have to be that way. So can you maybe talk a little bit about what self-care looks like for you right now and your favorite way to practice self-care?
Yeah. I again, like because I had this scarcity mindset, and I think that was why I'm so intentional about not depriving myself even more. Cause that was like what I was trying to work against. That I'm like, I
Yeah.
felt deprived and I felt like I had to be constrained, and that had some effect on me. So anyway,
Yeah.
I've been very conscious of my self-care journey because I had really bad anxiety and I had to really slow down my nervous system. So I think that's one of the things that I do for my self-care is like actually slow down. Like if I'm like rushing around, I'm grabbing all my stuff, I'm trying to get out the door, I'm trying to pause to be like, stop. Like saving 30 seconds getting out the door is not worth starting your day with like elevated cortisol and like my blood is pumping and I'm forgetting things. So I just, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I just stop and take a few deep breaths and just slow down. And I'm like, slow down. Like you're going to get
Yeah.
there. It's going to be fine. Um, and it's really like that initial work before you even go to the spa because you could be rushing to get to the spa and then you're like, oh my God, I have to get all my stuff ready. And like, then you're not even relaxed. And so you get there and
Yeah.
you're just like, oh God, I had to like, make rush into traffic to even get here. And like, I love going to the spa, but I think it's all those like everyday mindful practices about taking your deep breaths and slowing down,
Mm.
drinking water, making sure you're hydrating yourself and not just like skipping meals and getting through the day because we're all busy people, but actually making sure you're taking care of your health.
Mhm.
I love lighting candles, going on walks, going on hikes. These are all, free ways for self-care. But on the expense side, like I do like to go to regular massages, regular osteo, regular physio. Like I'm always at my clinics because I just find that they help me. Like
Yeah.
acupuncture, to me, acupuncture is like the only way I can truly relax because you cannot move. You can't check your
Yeah.
phone. You can't do anything. You're like pinned down with needles, and there's something about acupuncture that like truly relaxes me way more than the spa. Like again, I love spas, but I'm distracted. I'm looking at people. I'm thinking. So finding your thing, and maybe you can totally shut off at the spa, but I can't. But I can totally shut off with acupuncture.
That's amazing, and it's so good to find what works for you. Um, what is the thing that's bringing you the most amount of joy right now?
Mm. I know it's so cliche, but my son, my
Oh.
family, it's so fun. Like
Mhm.
Um, being a toddler mom, to me, like I struggled a lot postpartum with a newborn phase. I'm like, this is not easy or very
Yeah.
enjoyable because it's so like routine and kind of monotonous. And I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, breastfeeding again or pumping again. It's just like again, again, again. But with a
Yeah.
toddler, like I'm just like, he's so creative. And to me, that's so fun. I like love seeing his little brain work.
Oh, that's so special. I love that. Um, can we practice self-care while still working within our budget? Like if somebody's feeling like, oh, the things that make me happy, are really just like pushing me over the edge, is this possible?
Totally. And there's lots of ways. Like, for a long, long time, going to yoga was self care for me, and it still is. But again, like I now find like I'm rushing to get to yoga, and I'm still trying to find like a balance. But when I was early on, like in my career, and I didn't really have the budget to be going to yoga, I did the energy exchange program. So you work like 3 hours a
Huh.
week, like cleaning or tidying up the studio. Like you're not like scrubbing toilets, you're just sweeping sweat off the ground. And then in exchange, you get a free yoga membership. So a lot of yoga studios have that. You can always find creative ways to even like negotiate or barter. And yeah, I mean, there if you want to do something and it's not in the budget, like there's ways to find, maybe there's a Groupon or discounts. Like there's always discounts around, or truly find like low cost or free ways that you can still get your self care in. And I even
Yeah.
love even just like a hot cup of tea or like a hot cup of cocoa. And I'm really into this cocoa brand now that's like reishi mushrooms.
Oh,
Um,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, I don't know. It could be a placebo, but I do find that they give me energy. And they're a lot more expensive than just like regular chocolate. But when you break it down cost per cup, it's still like 50 cents for the cup. So I don't know. There's something to me that I'm like, this is a nice self care. Like I take time. I really like brew it properly and sit down and just enjoy it. And I don't think you need to have these extravagant self care routines, especially if they're going to stress you out because they're expensive. Then that's kind of counterintuitive. Yeah.
Yeah, it defeats the purpose. I think that there is such a way to just be intentional. Like it's not actually what the task is or what the activity is. I think it's more the intention behind it that really makes it
100%.
self-care or not. And I think that's important to note. Like the simple act of making a hot cocoa or a tea or a coffee, like that to me is a break. I like to do that. And so maybe for someone else that's not the case, but I think when I'm really thinking like, okay, this is my moment, this is my break, I'm going to take a few breaths while I'm doing this. I'm going to maybe clear my mindset, then that does become self-care versus saying like, "Oh, I need to get an espresso shot inside of me right now."
Mhm.
Like then that's not
Exactly.
so much self-care, you
Exactly.
know?
It's totally about that. And it's this whole concept of like, why am I rushing to get to self care? I could be doing self care
Totally.
right now by just being intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. So then what is your take on the whole like treat yourself culture versus long-term financial goals? Like how do we find that kind of balance versus like, "Oh, you only live once, like let's just
Yeah. I know.
not think about it."
I love thinking about this because I've never been the like, oh, you only live once, but I have. Like I've been on over 40 international trips. So I've definitely enjoyed my life.
Incredible.
But The way that I manage my money is that I make sure I'm taken care of. So my bills, my finances, and my future is taken care of. Whatever is left over is guilt free spending. And that's when I'm like, treat yourself. But to me, financial security is my number one priority for me and my family. So as long as that's covered, if I have an extra $400 left a month because I've already put everything aside, like I paid myself first,
Mm,
then I can do whatever I want with that and I have guilt-free spending. But that's after I've saved, I've invested, I've paid for my bills, I put money aside in my savings accounts, whatever's left over, spend it on whatever you want. And I think that's a sustainable way to meet your financial goals. And ultimately, this kind of live your life to the fullest is a great mindset. But if you are intentional about wanting to save and invest, then that is a bit secondary. It's like
mm,
save and invest and then live life to the fullest. Because if you live life to the fullest, then you might not have anything left over to save and invest. And so then that's not a priority. And that's fine. If
yeah.
that's not your priority. That's your mindset and that's where you are right now. But if your mindset is I really want to save and protect myself and like be secure, then you have to flip those around.
Yeah. I really like that mindset actually, and the order of what you're working with. Is there a proper time to reward yourself or to quote splurge?
As long as you're financially stable. And I mean, it's hard because if you're not financially stable, it doesn't mean you shouldn't reward yourself, but it probably means you shouldn't be rewarding yourself with an all inclusive trip. So maybe
Mm,
your reward is just like a cup of coffee or a more fancy latte. Like the way you reward yourself will change over time. The way I reward myself now as someone who's financially secure is completely different than when I was 21 and trying to build my life and career up. So
yeah.
yeah, reward yourself 100%, but be realistic with like what is in your budget and how can you reward yourself. And that's the only way. Like this balancing act is really how you come ahead financially.
Yeah. And what is something that you've maybe splurged on and not felt guilty about?
I never feel guilty about expensive dinners with friends. Sometimes
Mm,
I feel like a little like, oh, I really came out and spent $300, but then I'm just,
yeah.
you know what? This is an investment in my friendship. It's an investment in like, yeah. So I guess I do feel a little bit guilty, and then I stop feeling guilty when I'm like, no, I can afford this. It's fine, and
Yeah.
I'm here with my friends, and it's a good time, and I like paying for drinks every now and then and kind of rewarding or splurging on my friends. And it's just nice to get to that point where I'm like, it's okay, drinks are on me. Or like, I got
I
this.
love that.
Yeah.
And like sharing it with your friends or people that are close to you. I think that that is really beautiful actually. And I'm a big believer in like experiences are things that
Yeah.
I want to spend money on. And so having those experiences with people that I want to share them with, I think is wonderful.
Yeah. Especially with some of my friends who've been with me for, you know, so long, like high school friends or earlier, and they like saw me not have money and they were always picking me up because I didn't have a
Oh,
car and they were coming to my house and I'm just like, listen, it's my time to give back because I never paid for gas because I didn't, have money.
yeah.
So I'm like, thank you. Thank you for sticking by
Ah.
me. Thank you
What
for
goes around
like
comes around. I love it. Speaking of friends and family too, like sometimes it can be really hard to keep up with our friends and family if they don't have the same financial mindset that maybe we do. How do you personally navigate maybe like financial boundaries when it comes to relationships or friendships or even family?
mm, yeah, and that's interesting because I feel like I was on the other side. Like I was always so embarrassed going to birthday parties or like being
Oh,
invited places because I'm like, I don't like I literally have no money. Like my family isn't buying gifts at Toys R Us. Like if we're buying a gift that I was going to a birthday party, it was like something from the Byway or the dollar store, like
yeah.
so I always felt like everyone else is ahead of me and I never want people to feel like that in my presence. And so whenever I have like parties or gatherings, like I want to supply everything, like the drinks I supply, the food I supply. Like I don't want
Mm.
people to feel like they have to bring anything. Even for my
Yeah.
son's birthday party, we've always, since he was born, said like no gifts are required. Like please don't feel like you have to bring anything. It's like very clearly labeled on all of our invitations. And if I'm like, if you insist on bringing something, like we're happy with second used. Like if you want to give me hand me downs for his party, like that's fine. And so, yeah, I think I try to be very intentional about like helping people feel included. Um, and certain friends, like I know their financial circumstances, and even for my parties, like I remember I went to for my 30th birthday, I rented out a pole dancing studio
Fun.
and I pay for that. Like, I'm like, I don't want people thinking like they have to chip in. Like, I will cover that because I don't want you
Mm.
feeling like I can't afford to come because I can't afford to pay for that. Even for my wedding, my bridal party, like, I paid for everything because I'm like, I don't want you paying for things for my party. And they were like, oh my God, of course we'll pay. But I'm like, if you want to pay and like you really do want to pay, that's fine. But like, I don't want to put you out. And
To make you feel pressured.
yeah, I don't want to pressure my friends. And I've read all these stories of like bachelorette parties and people feeling so much resentment because they have to spend like $5,000 to go to Vegas.
Mm.
And maybe all of your friends are in like a good financial position and you feel like, of course, you can pay for that and it's fine. But like, I don't want to put that on people around me.
Yeah, totally. And I think then maybe it comes down to having open communication with friends and family. Like, how do you feel about this? Is this something that we can all contribute to do, or do we not want to do these things together?
Mm-hmm.
Because it maybe doesn't fit everybody's budget. And so, yeah, I think those conversations are good things to have.
Mm-hmm.
What's one money myth that you want to bust once and for all?
Oh, I feel like there's so many. Sometimes I'm like shocked that people believe certain things. I'm like, what? Like that is not true.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's a lot of confusion, and I don't even fully understand it with credit card debt.
Mm,
I don't understand how people don't realize that this isn't your money and you have to pay it back, and that you have to pay back at 20% interest if you miss the deadline. Like I don't know what the exact myths are, but there's so much credit card debt. And I
yeah.
know that some people need it for like medical reasons or like emergencies and it happened, but a lot of it is consumer debt that could have been avoided. And so, whatever the myths are out there that like it's free money or you don't have to pay it or you only need to pay the minimum,
Mm.
false news, false news, false news.
I think that's a really, really good one. Well, Liz, thank you so much for sharing with us. Typically, to end, I do some rapid fire questions. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, coffee or tea?
Tea.
Reading or watching TV?
TV.
Dream travel destination?
Hawaii.
Ooh, guilty pleasure?
Sour Patch Kids.
And favorite kind of restaurant to go to?
Oh, gosh. I eat out a lot. So either Italian, sushi, or Mexican,
Mm.
or Thai.
Oh, all good options.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, Liz, where can people find you, connect with you, work with you?
Yeah, I'm on all platforms under Ambitious Adulting.
Perfect. And we will tag that in the notes as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. So fun reconnecting.
Yes. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Cup of Joy. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. And if this episode resonated with you, or if you've been loving this show, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are listening. Your support helps the podcast grow, it helps it reach more people, and it means the absolute world to me. So keep filling your cup with joy, and I will see you next week.